Beth.
Good evening. I'm Beth Kiggins, and I'm happy to say that I'm a breast cancer survivor. I want to start tonight with a little bit of a public service announcement. Breast cancer is not just for women. Men are diagnosed as well. I was going to have everybody stand up if you knew someone touched by breast cancer, and then stand up if you knew someone touched by cancer, but there's so many candles lit, and I'd still venture to guess that not one person will be sitting. Can I ask those two questions? Cancer is an epidemic. But breast cancer is more prevalent in older women. It does strike younger women. I've been amazed and perplexed by the number of women I have met diagnosed with breast cancer at the age in their 20s and in their 30s. And so for what it's worth, I did have regular mammograms. I was 3 months shy of my next scheduled mammogram when my cancer was diagnosed. The rosary is a very important part of my faith life. I pray the rosary every day. I'm Catholic, as you can tell, I'm Catholic. So I'm looking at Protestants who pray the rosary, but there's something about running my fingers over the beads and saying the prayers that are repetitious. If you're not familiar with the rosary, how many here are Catholic? A few, but okay. So for the rest of you, the rosary is made up of 5 sections of 10 beads, and we pray the Lord's Prayer on the prayer between the 10 beads, and then we pray Hail Marys on the 10 beads in between. And each of these 5 sets of what they call decades are mysteries. Every day of the week there's 4 different mysteries, and depending on the day of the week, you pray about a particular mystery. So for example, today's mysteries of life. So the first decade was Jesus' baptism in the Jordan, and then the second decade is mystery of the wedding feast at Cana, and then the declaration of the kingdom of God, the transfiguration, and then the Eucharist, institution of the Eucharist. So every day I pray my rosary, and for each decade I pray for something different. So on the first decade I pray for all those who are seriously ill, people who are suffering with leukemia, or just various diseases, deadly diseases, children who are dying with diseases they should not even know about. The second one, I pray for anyone who has, will have, or has had breast cancer. And I pray that God heal them physically, spiritually, and emotionally. Third decade, I pray for my family and my friends. The fourth one, I pray for anyone who serves the church. That's all of those who minister within the church, that God grants them grace, mercy, and wisdom. And the fifth one, I pray for all those who serve, for our firefighters, police officers, military personnel. I pray for the families of those who have been killed in the line of duty, for families of those who have been killed by evil, like 9/11 and the Orlando shootings and all that kind of stuff. So it's nice for me to meditate on whatever the decade is and pray for the different things that I pray for. And there's probably 40 rosaries back there on the back table that I brought back from Rome when I went to Mother Theodore Guerin's canonization. They were blessed by Pope Benedict, who was Pope at the time. Anybody who wants one, take one, because I love, even if you're not Catholic, I've known non-Catholics who like the rosary, so you're welcome to those. And then the quote at the bottom of the page, you can't see anyway, but I'm going to talk a little bit more about that a bit later. There's a book by Squire Rushnell called When God Winks at You. And in times of difficulty, people often ask, where was God? I believe that God is omnipresent. I think if you don't think God is there during adverse times, He's not the one that's moved. You're the one that's moved. I always believe that things happen for a reason. God knows and controls the bigger plan. I'm just along for the ride. I'm a big believer in what Squire Rushnell calls God winks. I call them God things. There are little events in our lives that remind us that God is in control. My cancer diagnosis, or actually what got me to the doctor, was a God thing. Just a little bit about my journey. On November 18th, I've been having just a little bit of pain on the left side of my left breast. Happened for a couple of months, and so I thought, well, we have a health center here on campus, a little health center, and was examined by one of our nurse practitioners. She gave me a breast exam, couldn't find anything that suggested I go see my OBGYN. So the thing that was interesting to me was my meeting with my OBGYN was on November 11th. And I had called and I said, I already met with my nurse practitioner. She gave me a very thorough exam. She suggested I have a mammogram. And she said, okay, come into the office. We need to do an exam and then we'll have you have a mammogram. And she said, we take breast cancer very seriously. So I go into this exam. She does maybe a 5-second breast exam and says, okay, you need to go have a mammogram. I thought, I just sat through a half-an-hour one on campus. You give me a 5-second one and you're sending me for a mammogram. Why did I have to waste my time coming into the office? It was that part was kind of frustrating. So the mammogram showed something suspicious. She sent me for what they call a needle biopsy. And a needle biopsy is exactly what they say it is. They stick a needle into your breast where they think the tumor is. They extract some fluids, make them send it, and have it tested. So ironically, this was 2 days before Christmas. So I had to sit through the Christmas holiday. Nobody bothered to call me back. 2 days after Christmas, I finally call the hospital back, and because I'm expecting either my doctor or the hospital, somebody to call and tell me something. And they didn't. So I called, and I knew I was in trouble when they put the doctor on the line. And he said my tumor was cancerous. And not knowing what to say, I just said, so what does that mean? Well, you need surgery. I thought, well, duh. Tell me something. I didn't know what to think. But it was a bittersweet day. This was another God thing to me. That morning, my husband and I had closed on our new home. We had purchased a retirement home after living in our former home for 29 years. So that morning, I got to close on my new home. And that afternoon, I found out I had cancer, so I could think about the good things versus focus on the cancer part of it. So, and then, I don't know how many of you remember Snow again? This was another God thing. Working here at the university, I've been here now 30 years, and I've got a lot of friends here, and I know a lot of the nursing faculty really well. And so I had colleagues who refer me to doctors. They referred me to a doctor that wasn't even in my hospital network, a completely different hospital than I'd been in my entire life. And this lady was a rock star. But my initial meeting with my surgeon was scheduled for January the 8th, which was day 4 of Snowmageddon. Now we were actually closed here for 2 days. I've been here 30 years. And until Dr. Kiggins was president, we never, ever, ever, ever closed. Never. Once Dr. Kiggins came in, we'd get a half a day, or they let us go home early, but we just didn't close. We had 2 days off from campus. It was amazing. So my office visit was scheduled on, it was a Wednesday. My doctor's office called and said, we're really backed up because we've been closed for 2 days, and she's got surgeries, and would you mind rescheduling? Well, I'd already waited 2 weeks. Here I am just wanting to get in and talk to somebody to find out what I'm going to have to do. And luckily, this lady was so awesome. She did all her surgeries and scheduled us at the end of the day, which is even better because my husband, we lived in Canby. At the time, my husband, he worked in Greencastle, so he had to get from Greencastle to pick me up and then take me to the doctor, which he was able to do without taking off work since it was at the end of the day. So that was just, God keeps throwing these curveballs at us. We just keep fighting back. Coming to the university even 28 years prior to this was another God thing. I had worked straight out of college. I went to work for Amtrak. I'd been there 7 years, and I wasn't real happy as a programmer. I just wasn't happy with the direction my career was taking. And a friend of mine was the HR director. I was just sitting in talking to him one day. His wife happened to work here. And I just happened to be sitting in his office when she called and told him about a job here at the university. I applied for it and got the job. Had I not been sitting in his office, I probably would never applied because I wasn't actively looking. It's just another bit in my life where God put me where I needed to be, so that here 28 years down the road, I would have people that could help me get through. I had nurses who went to appointments with me. They knew what questions to ask. They could decipher what I wasn't understanding. You guys have been with parents or family to appointments where you get bad news. Your mind is thinking about all kinds of things you're not interpreting. I want to take a tape recorder just so I could replay what I had done, so I know what I was hearing. So having those nurses there with me was a great thing for me. My diagnosis and surgery was another God thing to me. You saw it took place at the end of the year. Those of you who are familiar with insurance policies, they start in January and run through December. All of my stuff, except the little exam I had in December, took place in a new calendar year. So all of my insurance stuff started over. I didn't have to try to split it across 2 different years. I got to have my surgeries, my chemo, everything was done in the same year. Several years prior to that, this university offered a Aflac cancer policy. And I thought, well, what are the chances that neither my husband nor I will get cancer? And I opted for it. And that was amazing. Any of you, if you ever have an option to get a cancer policy and you can afford it, go for it. Because that has been as important to me as having my retirement. Because it just took care of everything I had to pay for without coming out of pocket. You hear people out losing their homes and losing everything else because of chemo and everything that it cost them. Having Aflac was amazing. I was diagnosed with what they call an invasive lobular carcinoma, or ILC. It's the second most common form, although it only strikes about 10% of women a year. Most women are diagnosed with invasive lobular or invasive ductal, which is 80% of the women are diagnosed with that. Invasive means that the cancer has invaded other parts of the breast tissue, so it spread. I actually had 2 additional tumors that were not caught on the mammogram that they found when they did some of the other testing. And according to the American Cancer Society, about 2/3 of women who are 55 or older are diagnosed with some form of invasive cancer. And due to the invasive nature of the diagnosis, I opted for a bilateral mastectomy with reconstruction. Another God thing during this time, and Cindy will remember this, we were in a book study at the time, and we were talking, there was only 3 or 4 of us in the book study, because she had such a big group, we were in 2 different ones. And I kept saying, I got family in Georgia, I got friends here, I got college friends, and you don't want people calling and say what's going on. I wanted to blog or something to tell what my journey was, so I didn't have to keep telling people, or my family didn't have time to get family. And Carolyn Kirkendall, any of you in Hershey probably know Carolyn, she said, well, look at, I lost my place. Caring Bridge. Does anybody ever use Caring Bridge? Caring Bridge is amazing. My story is still out there. I mean, I had somebody tell me, I saw your story on Caring Bridge. Well, that's been 3 years ago almost now. I can document all the office visits. You know, people left me pictures. I had people here from work who sent pictures of their department to me. They left inspiring words and prayers and songs, and it was just amazing just for me to have something to look at to inspire me when I was going through all of this. So, my surgery took place on St. Patrick's Day. I will never forget St. Patrick's Day. It was the first day of spring break here, which is why I opted for that, so I didn't have to miss. I was teaching at the time and had to have somebody take over my class in the School of Ed. We were also, I mentioned we had sold our house, or we were buying a new house. My goal was to be in my new house when I had surgery. I did not want to have to be moving when I was trying to go through 8 weeks of healing. We had to cancel our moving truck 3 times because of the snow that year. We lived in Martinsville. We had a very hilly driveway, and the moving truck might get in the driveway, but he wouldn't have been able to get out. We moved 1 week prior to my surgery. So I was just happy to be out of that house, in my new house. My surgeon, I can't tell you what a rock star she was. I found out later that, or I found out during the time, she was the first female surgeon to graduate from Duke. So I thought those were pretty good credentials. And also, I only spent 1 night in the hospital. I checked in the hospital, I had to be there at 6 o'clock in the morning, and I was home by 1 o'clock the next day. That was just amazing to me that you can go through that kind of surgery and be home the next day. So, in the spring of 2014, which is when most of this took place, God in his wisdom threw all kinds of curveballs at me. Breast cancer was not the only thing that was taking place in my life, so I really had to put my faith in him that he had a plan for me and he knew what direction he wanted me to take. I already mentioned that we moved to a new home. My sister-in-law was diagnosed at the same time with ovarian cancer. And if anyone of you know anyone with ovarian cancer, that outlook is pretty bleak. And she and my brother have been married for better than 50 years. About the same time of my life, I was having trouble with the breast pain. Oh, first I mentioned my breast pain. My doctor told me that's not a symptom of breast cancer. Just got you to the doctor. So here I could have gone without any of this breast pain and never got to waited 3 months for my mammogram. But the fact that I had the breast pain got me to the doctor. So to me, that was another God thing. I was also having some colon rectal issues. So she sent me to a colon rectal doctor who did some more testing and found out I had polyps on my colon. So I was going to have surgery on my colon after I got through all the cancer treatment. Again, the issues that I was having with my colon were not symptomatic of the polyps, it just got me to the doctor. These are just God things that God kept throwing into my life to get me to where I needed to be. So once I went through the breast cancer, I went through chemo. Once I got through the chemo, I was healed from all all of that, I could go then have the polyp surgery. And then once I get the polyp surgery out of the way, all these doctors talked to try to time how everything was supposed to take place. Once I got through all of that, then I could go back and have my reconstruction. So it literally took from March until December until I was completely done with various surgeries and treatments and those kinds of things. During the same 9-month period, my husband and I were working on our house, our old house, and we had a deck that needed to be propped up a little bit, and had to do, when you put underneath the decks to hold them up. And we were carrying a car jack, and it slipped out of his hand and landed on my foot, almost completely severing one of my toes. My oncologist would just look at me and shake his head. When I saw him just a month ago, he said, I can tell by my patients how thick their files are, because your file's not as thick as it used to be. So he just was amazed. I was amazed. 8 weeks after my initial surgery, our youngest daughter got married. And then once I had the colon surgery, I got to have the reconstruction. But again, it took 10 months to get through all of this. And I just kept saying, okay, God, enough's enough. They say things happen in threes. Mine was like happening in 8 or 10. It wasn't fair. So, but our God is a very humorous God. 2 days after we returned home from the hospital, our refrigerator went out. So I sat, I still have Julie Gayheimer, anybody know her, she's in PT. She laughs at me because I sat with a computer and shopped online for a refrigerator. Found a refrigerator I wanted. A good friend from college came down the day they were delivering it, and she sat there and directed the delivery man to where the refrigerator was supposed to go, took all the food out of the old refrigerator, put it in the new refrigerator while I sat in the recliner and watched. And then since I've been at UIndy, again, I mentioned earlier, I've been had all these health professionals around me, so it was really great to have them to take to appointments, get a second set of ears, just find out how to interpret what I was being told. God places friends in our lives for a reason, so we can find a little bit of Him in each of them. And I think when we have events in our lives that rock our world, we have to do our best to remember that God is in control. He is omnipresent. It's all part of His bigger plan. And that's why we rely on His Word to give us strength. You read Proverbs 3:5, trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. And I like the lean not on your own understanding part because we may not realize it at the time, but He's preparing us for whatever journey He has prepared for us. And Philippians 4:26, I can do all things through Him who strengthens me. He then gives us His Word, our family, our friends, our colleagues, our ministers. He gives us the strength and support that are necessary for us to fight our battles. This quote I really appreciate because it reminds me that it's not my life or my plan. And I have to be willing to take the events that God places in my life and use them to live the life that He planned for me. My sister-in-law passed away 12 months after she was diagnosed. And I attended her, my brother lives in, I have two brothers who live in Marietta, Georgia. So when I was in Georgia for her funeral, one of his friends came up to me and he said, I want to give you a piece of advice. He says, when my wife passed away, my sister called me every day and talked to me. He said, that has meant the world to me. He said, I just want you to think about that. So I started calling my brother every day after Karen passed away. My brother's 12 years older than me. So when I was 8 years old, he was already out in college. So I was never very close with him. But we have never been closer. It's now been almost 18 months, and I still talk to him almost every day. He has said that many, many times how much he appreciates me calling him. They were very close. They were a great couple. And I went down. I was fortunate enough before she passed to travel to Marietta and see her. And she was laying in this hospital bed. This beautiful, beautiful woman looked like she was rehealed. She had just, like 80 pounds of nothing. And my brother just looked at her with the most love in his eyes. And I'll never forget how he looked at her laying in that bed, as cancer-ridden as she was. So it's a God thing. Again, I got to go down and see her. It was a God thing for my brother that I met this friend of his that told me to call him every day. All these things are just experiences that God places in our lives to help us get through these types of things. We are who we are. Every cell was made by God. How we use who we are allows us to live a fulfilling life for God. We have to be stronger than anything that's going to happen to us. We have to look on the brighter side and, is the glass half full or is it half empty? I was talking to my youngest daughter the other day, and she's just the biggest pessimist I know, and I don't know where she got it, because our older daughter is very optimistic. And I said something to her, and she said, well, that's why I never tell you anything, because you always have a positive outlook. Why would you want to have a negative? So, I have a colleague and a friend here at the university who has no working kidney. She's been on dialysis 4 times a day for a year now. Every day when I pray for those who are seriously ill, I pray for her. She had some health issues a couple of weeks ago, and I reminded her, I still pray for you every day that you'll get that kidney. And she thanked me, of course, and she said, I was talking to my minister about this the other day. She said, he told me you have to have faith enough that if you don't ever get another kidney, it's good enough. And that was really kind of eye-opening to me. So when we have difficulties or adversities in our lives, well, we will naturally pray as Luke did in 22:42, Father, if you are willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but yours be done. I think we also need to pray for God's strength and guidance to travel the journey that he planned for us, even though it may not be the journey that we intended. My journey led to an entirely new direction in my life, that of giving back to others. I've been looking for a way to serve, I just had never found anything that really clicked with what I wanted to do.